know that as a young child, I also experienced molestation. And even then, when I was going through this sexual trauma, I realized that the person that was doing that to me, they weren't really trying to physically harm me. They were trying to get at something within me that they didn't even know what they were trying to touch. And it was that they couldn't take and couldn't dim. And I knew even when I was going through that this was not for me. This is something that greater was going to come out of this than just this moment, right? So that helps me today in the work that I do, because I understand that people go through traumatic experiences, but it does not make them the sum of who they are, right? So it's really important for me to, number one, acknowledge my veterans, acknowledge the road, the paths that they've traveled, all individually, because yes, we know, some of the things that they experience and go through. And even to the next level, those who don't walk with privilege are Black veterans that we're speaking on today, during Black History Month. So all those things are so important. I think that we show up in spaces whole, that we show up in spaces available and open enough to help other people. And that's really what I'm here for today and what it's all about. And I'm happy to speak to any experiences that I have and the veterans that I work with and the communities that I work within, serving the underprivileged and underrepresented population.
Wow. So thank you. That was really cool. And thank you for your service, for real. Thank you all that you do for vets. I always tell people it's just not about the person who actually, maybe put on the uniform and, goes, and it's the whole family. It's the entire family. So thank you for your sacrifice and your dedication, and know that we appreciate, for holding down the fort and just doing all these amazing things. Because, it's still kind of funny as being a female vet. I did this campaign not too long ago, and it said, "I am not invisible." And so a lot of times when my husband and I were going out, and we might just say park at a place and it has, a thing for veterans, or we'll go somewhere and we'll go, "Can we get a veteran discount?" And they always look at my husband and go, "Oh, thank you for your service, sir." And I go, "You're welcome." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, "No, look, he serves too. The whole family, serves." So, that's always funny. But yeah, I have been in recovery for over 38 years. I was in the military for 9 years, military police. Some of the best years of my life was being a soldier. I love being a soldier. And I told my husband, I said, "Look, I'm just letting you know now, get your mind right. Don't get your feeling hurt, but I'm about to tell you something." I told him this maybe like 10 years ago. I said, "Look, this is not about you." I said, "But I love you, but there is one man I will leave you for." And he looked at me like, "Oh God, what is going to come out this girl's mouth again?" I said, "Darren, I will leave you for Colin Powell. If Colin Powell goes back in and said, I'm going to be general, I'm going back, I'm getting the army together, I'm in. I'm in. I would follow Colin Powell to the end of the earth. But unfortunately, he's no longer with us. So that's my joke, but it's true. I used to always tell
your husband's safe now, right?
Right. But if Colin Powell would have signed back up, I'm like, "Oh no, I'm going to serve under you." Yes, sir. But even today, I would still, I love this country with all its challenges and faults. I love this country. It hosts the most dear and sacred things that I have on this earth, and that is my family and friends. And for them, I would defend any day of the week. So just so you know. And but I did love being a soldier. I did. Some of my best days. I loved basic training. I did. I thrived in basic training. And people are like, "How did you thrive in basic training?" Well, I am my daddy's daughter. My daddy was a Vietnam vet. And I'll tell you in a few, but my dad trained me to fight while wounded. The military enhanced me to fight while wounded, but my dad was the one who trained me to fight while wounded. And he was very militant. And so he raised me in that space. I got in trouble a whole lot. I have the gift of gab, if you can tell, but sometimes that gab was not always good. And so I always got in trouble for talking too much. And so my dad would always, talk back at me and, give me, and I would, "Tonja, you talk too much." And I would talk back. So, we had a different way of that. Me and my dad communicated. So when I went to the military and they were screaming at me, hollering in my face, I'm like, "I'm used to this. I thought it was funny." I'm like, "I'm used to that." you know, so anyway, but I love being a soldier, and I still continue to do that work, but in a different way for my community. When I was 7 years old, I was molested. By the time I was 10 or 11, I was still being molested and sexually active. The first time that I started using drugs was 13. I sung in a band. I used to be this little girl. I have still goofy smile that you have. I love to entertain people. I love people to be happy. I love to push hope. I wake up every day to push hope. But when I was this little girl, I knew how to sing Al Green before I knew my ABCs. And if y'all going, who is Al Green? I am not telling y'all how many birthdays I have, but I knew Al Green, Love and Happiness. And so I also sung in this choir, a community choir, and they wrote a song for me, not knowing what I was going through. But the words of the song said, I am just a child, I know. Everything I am will grow. Things that hurt when I am small grows much bigger when I'm tall. And I had no idea. I was basically prophesying my life because of the trauma. And so that trauma as a 7-year-old girl followed me into my 20s, and it almost took my life. Look, nobody thought I'd live to be 18. So the fact that I have this many birthdays and I'm still here is a miracle. And so I grew up having a lot of behavior issues. I got kicked out of elementary school because I used to fight a lot. I was this little happy girl, wanted to entertain people, make people happy. And I became this monster. And people used to always say, Tonja, what the hell is wrong with you? But nobody knew to ask Tonja what happened to you. And so I had all these behavior issues. I've been raped before several times. I've been in the mental hospital twice. I am a 3-time suicide attempt survivor. The first time I tried to kill myself, I was 13. I ended up in a hospital getting my stomach pumped. The next time I was 19, I ended up going into a mental hospital. But I wasn't only suicidal, I was homicidal as well. And then I had another time that I had to spend in a mental hospital, which is really the time that changed my life for real. Like I said, I've been in recovery for 38 years. I just, recently got diagnosed with PTSD about 8 years ago. Of course, mine didn't come from being in the military. It did come from being in with sexual trauma. I, did prostitution for a while. And of course, then I went in the military, and that was like putting a kid in a candy store. And in the military, I was, sexually violated. I ended up having to leave to come home and have an abortion because I got pregnant for a drill sergeant, which is totally against the law on so many different levels. So I grew up having a lot of history of trauma. And so mental health and addiction was something that was always plaguing me. Suicide was always a plan B for me, always my option to get out. And so I share my lived experience because I want people to know how jacked up and bad it is. But I also want people to know that there's hope. And being African American and in the faith-based community, you don't talk about suicide. That's for somebody else. That's for white people. You go over there. You don't tell people your business. You go, you pray about it, you keep it moving. And so we have to change that narrative as a culture. And then, like I said, the faith-based community, which I'm a part of, we're the worst. We tell people in a minute, you going to hell. That's the devil. We don't talk to people about mental wellness, and diagnosis and medication and treatment and things like that. So I'm grateful, that, you guys are having these conversations. Thank you for having me. For real, Adam and Chelsea. I think this is great. I think that even being a vet, we need to talk more about, vets and how, we're dying rapidly every day, but there's hope, and that the work, that, Sanjay is doing is amazing. And so having these spaces and having these conversations, I believe is what changed lives.
It's amazing what you're saying. You would think that some of those the situations, the life situations that you were in were places where you should have been safe, right? You think that if you go into the military and you're in a culture that's supposed to be defending and upholding and withholding, then securing, right? That should be an environment where that's safe for you. And that's just, it's so unfortunate that happened to you, but I see your resiliency and I celebrate that, And I was just wondering how you got into the military. When did that become your option? When did you go into the military?
So it was never an option, like I said, because so many times I saw my dad leave to go on a Greyhound bus when he left us as a kid. And I remember him being in that white suit because he was in the Navy and he was so handsome. And I remember him always getting on. And I remember one time my mom said I ran behind the bus. And she said that's when my dad decided, I don't know how much longer I could do this. Because I am my daddy's daughter. My dad is a fighter, and so am I. But yeah, going in the military, I've had family members, both my grandfathers and uncles served in the military, but that was never my jam. I always wanted to go to school or do something. So what happened was I was going to school, but I wasn't going to school. I was taking my parents' money and I was laying up with guys in dorm and doing my thing and partying. And they eventually find out that after a year, I wasn't going to school. I was just going to hang out. And so my dad's like, you know what, I'm done. If you want to get to college, get there the best way you can, but I'm not giving you a dime. So I said, oh, okay, I'll fix you. I'm going in the military. So that's when I learned about the GI Bill. And I went in because, like I said, I needed a way to, prove them wrong. And I was still searching for who I was and a way, and to finish college. And even with that, I've always wanted to be, in law enforcement, always have. I love protecting people. I love serving people. I'm the kind of person, I don't run away from something. I'm not afraid to die, which is a challenge for a person who always had suicide ideations. Death is not, I'm not scared of that. I lived most of my life dying, trying to die. And so anyway, so what happened was I went and talked to a recruiter, and I wanted to get, into some kind of top security or law enforcement, but I didn't score high enough. And he was like, well, I can help you. And I'm like, well, how can you help me? And he was like, I know how to, back in the day, you could change the ASVAB. And he basically said, you spend some time with me and let's go drinking and have sex. And, you do these favors for me and I'll do this favor for you. So I had to end up doing sexual favors for him to get into, being a military police. And that's how I got in. But again, I got in that way. But look, I was kind of used to doing that. For so many years, men had taken advantage of me through, abuse and through sex and through being raped. It became something that I just thought that's what I'm supposed to do, And so that's how I got in the military and scored high enough to get what I needed to get. But I ended up still enjoying it. After I went to basic training, it did save my life. It taught me stability. I love teamwork. It taught, I've always been a person of honor, even though I had a lot of challenges, but I loved all that. And so even in the midst of getting in, under false pretense and all the things that happened, I still would serve my country and my community any day of the week.
Okay.
It's amazing. So many of the questions that I have, you just in your sharing have sort of been discussed. And feel free to take these questions and expand or shape shift however you feel serves you best. What stigma or roadblocks have you seen for yourself and other Black veterans and their families when it comes to emotional health and support?
Mm-hmm. I think that it kind of speaks a little bit to what Tonja was talking about. There's an expectation in the Black culture, and we are taught it repeatedly. And it actually, it goes further, in history, you talk about Black history, it goes further than that for us. And what it is that, we come from, you could say being colonized, right? We come from a culture where the Black body was disrespected, so and thought less than, and so it's just like when you think about stigmas or roadblocks, you think about even today, right? We as Black people, it's being decided whether we can continue with the right to vote. Everybody should have the right to vote, right? Shouldn't be voting on whether somebody should have the right to vote, and it shouldn't be a yay or nay thing. So you take that and you put that into a military culture, and you're already dealing with power systems and power structures and levels of hierarchy. And if you're already used to being someone who is thought to be invisible, right? If you're already used to being raised in a culture where you don't talk about the negative things that are happening in your life. You're already used to living in a culture where you're literally taught to lie. Because if someone asks you how you're doing and you're really not okay, you don't say that, because that would bring shame or dishonor to your family or to your group or to your tribe, right? To your people. So when you take that and you put that in the center and the midst of the of a military experience, then it can be a bomb. It can be a bomb, but it can also turn out to be something that's beautiful. And I think that it depends on the mindset, the support system, and it depends on the individual, where they come from, who they've been raised by, and what their goals are, right? Because we can all live beyond our experiences. We can all go beyond that. I would like to say that Tonja, even though she's experienced so much, you know, you would think that they're traumatic experiences that she's been through, she's sharing with us, but there's no shame or guilt associated with it, because she has been, she's received liberty through it. She's freed from her experience. They don't hold her. So some of us would say, wow, how could she talk about that? But it's not about how she could talk about it, because she's freed from that. So I think the best way that we can overcome stigmas or roadblocks or anything like that is just to be, is just to live, just to thrive. And for us to recognize the individuality of people. Because like I said, we use the word veterans, but veterans is so broad. It includes so many different types of people. It includes so many different types of genders. It includes so many different types of individuals with different mindsets. And veterans are just more than the things that they've done or the things that they've been exposed to, some of the actions that they've been ordered to have, or maybe have ordered other people to have. So I think that when it comes to Black veterans and their families, we have to think about that. We have to think about how everything that an individual is dealing with is also affecting their family. I like what Tonja said about how she was a kid and she had to watch her father go away. He didn't know when every time he left, the effects that had on her, the effects that it had on his spouse, you know, and other family members that were around. So I believe that, you know, one thing that people think about soldiers, and especially Black veterans, Black soldiers, is they look at them and they think that they are the sum of one thing, but they're really, they're the sum of a lot of things. And if you can imagine trying to help someone through trauma, I guess trauma comes from the Black skin that we wear, right? And someone asked me to explain privilege. So when I was speaking to Adam about privilege, it's basically the privilege that he was born with because of the color of his skin. And I was appreciating the fact that he always opens up spaces to include others. And he uses that privilege in a way that's a blessing and not a curse or not a burden on anyone else. And so that's what I was acknowledging when I was acknowledging about his privilege. So I think that, you know, like I said, to be alive in America and Black skin is a trauma within itself. And then to put that upon military experiences and say to come out that you're a veteran, that's a whole different level. But
right.
Yeah, go ahead, Tonja.
Well, and the other thing is that what people don't realize is that, you know, when you decide to sign on the dotted line and you raise your right hand and you defend your country, you're giving up basically your constitutional rights. You don't have any rights. I mean, you know, basically all those are just that's within the system. And so, you know, which is also a challenge because those 4 years or those 8 years that you serve can affect the rest of your life, be it honorable discharge or anything like that. So African-American soldiers, you know, I saw, you know, in the military, and you see it, and look, I've experienced classism and racism, and that's a whole nother story for another day. And of course, you know, there's always classism in the military to a certain extent because of your different, your rank and things of that nature, even though you're a team and you need everybody and stuff like that. But, being, African American and a, vet is, a bit interesting because, again, you're scared to talk about the emotional parts or the challenges that you have, and because you think that, if you take that to your superior officer, you're a Black man or a Black woman, and you're having thoughts of suicide or mental health or anxiety or depression, stuff like that. Yeah, you can, go to sick call and you can see a psychiatrist or a doctor like that. But if you tell that to someone in your chain of command, then that can mess you up for life. I mean, that can get you, a dishonorable discharge, or some, maybe not dishonorable, but you never know. It could just maybe, it could mess up in so many spaces. So you're scared to talk about that when already as a culture, it's just something you don't talk about. You go to the chaplain or the priest and you talk to them about it. But, talking to your chain of command, you're scared. And look, and I hear that a lot now, that they're scared to say, look, I'm going through anxiety and depression, particularly, because you're carrying a weapon and all that kind of stuff. And, and that stuff is taken away. And then now you're just sitting, somewhere and not doing anything. The other thing is that before I got out the military, I was an equal opportunity NCO. And, and I guess they thought, Tonja's going to be fair, which I am, but I don't play. I'm not going to let you mess over anybody. And I'll never forget when we were in Panama on our way back, and this, guy at the post, there was a Panamanian who came in and something happened and he spit in his face. And I was standing there and I'm just like, not on my watch. That's not going to happen. And so the guy who wasn't Panamanian or didn't look like me thought it was okay to spit in somebody's face. I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. And so when I brought charges against them, even the military was like, well, he's just Panamanian, and won't you go back home, and we don't want to have you coming back over here testifying. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's a person's life. And so, being, in the military and being a vet, we have to advocate more. And it's like sometimes, we don't have a voice, but we have to find a way to do that. And so there is more pressure to be, African American in the military, because like I said, there's still so much classism and racism. However, we're supposed to be a team. The camaraderie really happens when we're on the battlefield, but it's when we're not, and just living, our regular lives is when the challenge happens. But, people who are in the military go through a lot of pressure, go through a lot of trauma. Like she said, trauma is a beast. It is. And it'll come back to bite you in the butt like nobody's business. So imagine you're a soldier, you're away from your house, you have a family, you're always concerned about them. You want what's best for them. They're nervous because they're thinking anytime you can get called up and you call the battle. Now you gotta, so you always gotta be on a 10. You always gotta be ready that if you ever get those orders, you have to, go shoot, move, and communicate. And so, you hear a lot about a lot of veterans having PTSD, and PTSD is no joke. Look, guys, when I was diagnosed some years ago, I'm not going to lie, they thought I had MS, went to the best hospital. Then I had a friend of mine who's a neurosurgeon. I'm like, I got a brain tumor. I'm telling you, I have a brain tumor. And, they did all these scans, and I have the scans of my brain today. And when they, called me and they said, Tonja, you don't have a brain tumor. And eventually I was diagnosed with PTSD, which you can see on the scan. Science can show you when you can see a history of trauma. But let me tell you, most days, I wish I had a brain tumor, for real, because the way people treat it and the way people look at it. So, just think of a person who has PTSD. You serve your country, you've done right, you've done the honorable thing. And now, PTSD is something that you live with the rest of your life. So we have to do a better job of being open. We have to do a better job of being honest. We have to do a better job of, talking about it more. So those who have sacrificed their life and served can now get the help that they need with no judgment, and not, oh, he's a soldier, he got PTSD, that's just him. No, that's like she just said, there's so many different pieces to people who are in the military and to veterans, and that's just one of them. So again, I like that we're having these conversations to, minimize and to reduce the stigma even among veterans.
And then there comes to about benefits and having access to your benefits. Tonja, you're a strong advocate for yourself, and I'm sure that you learned a lot and you were able to share your knowledge with others. But I look at different spaces like different bases, and then the out processing, right, for the veterans, and a lot of them, they're just like they're supposed to go to these Say again.
Vet centers?
Yes, but I'm talking about like when they're out processed from the military, right?
Yeah.
But no one, it's like they don't have an advocate in those spaces because no one is telling them that, okay, you're out processing, but this is what you need to do to make sure that you can maintain this benefit. Or if you're married, this is what you need to do in order to make sure that you're looking out for your spouse if anything happens to you. So what happens is that the military member, when they out process, then it's almost like that organization that you so faithfully serve now not serving you. We have our veterans and they have needs, and their needs are not even being met by the government and the system in which they served.
And not only that, and making it, even having the families there, because that's a vital part. Look, let me tell you something. Even in my journey, my family is a vital part, and my friends, particular friends. I have 3 friends. I have apps in my phone. If I hit one app, they all know to call. Don't ask no questions. Whatever you're doing, you probably need to stop it, And so, having family members aware, because I hear a lot from veterans' families is that when they love one, of course, when they leave, and they come back, 4 years, 3 years later, and they're different. And family members don't even know, well, let me call a vet center, let me call a number to access and just talk to someone. Or like you said, when they're processing out, to say, hey, look, you might want to be aware if you see something, your loved one, if they look a little different, well, they're going to be different at first. But if you see some behavior that's, where they don't want to get out, don't want to do anything, talking, maybe have suicide ideations or depressed too long, here's what you need to do as a family member to help them, because you're going to know the signs and stuff like that. So we have to, when we're dealing with our veterans who are having, any kind of mental health diagnosis, PTSD, whatever, we have to get the whole family involved, to make sure that, they're helping put checks and balances as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that happens a lot is the family members are not involved. But you said something, Tonja, that I really like. You said that when they come back 4 and 5 years later, they're different. Everybody's different. The world is different. Where they've gone and where they've been fighting or where they've been serving, and now they come back to the States. The States are different. We have different language, right? We have different clothing styles. We're listening to different music. But can you imagine like a Rip Van Winkle effect? Rip Van Winkle's asleep. He's asleep all these years, and then he wakes up and the world is different. That's how it is for our veterans when they come back. Our relationships with their spouses are totally different because they've grown apart. They haven't grown together. They haven't had life experiences together. And this one has had these traumatic experiences in these war zones or in the areas where they serve. They've had traumatic experience and they've just been released. Okay, go home like everything's fine. And the world is not fine. Their mental state is not fine. They actually are separating. So there's a transition. There really needs to be a mourning, like a death. The death of this military soldier is actually occurring while they're walking away from what they used to be into whatever it is. Some of them, bless their hearts, some of our veterans, they don't even know what they're walking into. So what is my life now? Who am I now? I don't wake up, I don't serve, I don't take these orders, I don't give these orders. I see we have a question.
Yeah, Bunny, you should be off mute, or Chelsea, can you unmute Bunny?
Yep, I got it. Hi, I'm Bunny. I live in Brooklyn, and thank you so much for being so open about what you've gone through. I come from that place of privilege too, and I'm just overcome. So I guess my question is, how did you learn, or how did you come to be so open about sharing it with other people? Because I know stuff that I feel so awkward sharing sometimes with public, with people. So what made you want to do that?
So let me just say this. Like I said, nobody thought I'd live to be, past 18. And the little girl who wanted to sing on Broadway, who loved entertaining everybody, I said she became a monster. Demons were my playmates. Those were the people that kept me company. So I came from a lot of darkness. And at one point, I didn't think I'd never get out of that black hole. And I remember, having a grandmother who, and my mom and my dad, but they were, having their challenges. But my grandmother particularly, she stayed on her knees. My grandmother had 2 knee replacements before she died. And we all said, because we kept her on her knees, praying for, us knuckleheads. And I never forget, when my grandmother, when I thought that, there was no way I could get dignity and self-respect back, that I would always be called crazy, and, people wouldn't trust me, and all the stuff, and just the things that I've done, and the fact that, so many times I thought I had AIDS because of the people that I had slept with. At first when, I started prostitution, I had a code, you can only be married with money. But then when crack happened, it was anybody in the crack house, And so I said all that to say that, I went to so many different dark places, and I never thought I'd get out. And when my grandmother told me that, that there was a plan and purpose for my life, I took her at her word. And I made a vow to God, because I had made many vows to him, ODing in hotel rooms and living to see about it, and, getting, the crap beat out of me and waking up. And I made a vow, and I'm like, God, if you help me, I help others. And I had no other choice, I believe, but to tell the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I know that people go through a lot of crap. Life ain't no joke. And I want them to know that I don't care how bad it is. Ain't no judgment here. I don't care how bad it is. You can overcome it. I don't care how bad it is. There's hope. Do you have to do the work? Yeah. Is the work hard? Yeah. Are there some hard days? Heck yeah. But, you're strong. We all have resiliency in us. And we say that word, oh, we are resilient. But nah, boo, we made us some strong stuff. And we just have to tap into that. So I felt like I had a charge to, to be truthful for who I was. And look, I also knew that I wanted to use my voice. I wanted to talk about people who have mental health diagnoses, who don't get the help that they need, or people who are in recovery, or people who are incarcerated, or, people that feel like, their voices have not been heard. That gift of gab I had, I always knew I was going to use it for good. And one of the things I didn't want people to do is to use my truth against me. So I'm going to use my truth for good. I'm going to use my truth for hope. And so you can go out there and you can say anything about me, but it's nothing I haven't already said. And so, look, even when I started telling my story, my family had a meeting and said, Tonja, you need to chill out, sister. You telling a little bit too much, and that's when I'm like, look, I'm going to tell my story, not anybody else's. And so it then became easier and easier. And look, and sometimes, I'm judged by it. There are some things that happened about 7 years ago that almost rocked my marriage of 28 years. And, being a pillar in the community, and some stuff happening. We'll talk about that, later. But yeah, I felt that, I wanted to see other people helped. And I think that, you guys talk about HearMe, people want to be heard, in order for people to heal, they need to be heard. And so I figured if I use my life story to talk about how bad it is, somebody would say, you know what, mine ain't that bad, and if she could do it, I could do it. And so that's why I'm always eager to share, but I also have to make sure I take care of myself, because I'm triggered a lot. And, but when it's all said and done, and it, helps save a life, then it's all worth it.
That's beautiful. And another thing too, Bunny, is that when you're delivered from something, there's something different about, like Tonja said, I'm making so many promises over and over and over again to God. But you come to a point in your life when you're ready for your own change, when it's real to you, and that you see that you want to change, you want something to be different, and then you do the work to strive for that. And so what happens is that you begin to tell your story, because you're giving it all away, because you're not holding on to it anymore. Because if I held on to sexual trauma, right, then I'm still a liar. I'm still the liar that my abuser made me out to be, because I'm holding on to the lie, and I'm holding on to the fear that exposure is worse than what I'm already going through, right? So when you release it, when you're delivered from something and you can release it and you can tell your story and there's no sting in your story, then other people can be blessed by that. Other people can be helped by that. Then what you went through, it wasn't in vain, because now you're able to help somebody else. I think another thing that gets me going too is I think about how hard my ancestors have had life, right? And I am living my ancestors' dreams, right? The things that the things that slaves fell over the side of ships for because they didn't want to come to America, you know, because they saw a glimpse of what America would be for them, you know, all the whips, the beatings and all those things that went on, all the lynchings and all those things, scattered dreams and hopes and torn apart. I mean, George Floyd with the knee on his neck. I am my ancestors' dream. I can breathe because they lived, because they died, because they had stories that didn't just end with their deaths. And so it's easy for me to stand up and be able to help someone else. And because of what I've gone through, I can reach out and I can help someone like a vet, right? I can help them to make a healthy connection with a family member because now they've come back and they're going through so much. They have PTSD, you know, and they're not able to function in a workplace. They're not able to function in their home life, you know, and my hope is that I can offer hope, is that I can help them to make healthy connections in their lives so that they can not just regain anything that they've lost, but that they can have new mercies, they can have a freshness, they can have something positive that's coming and moving forward from their experiences. And now they too can reach back and do the same thing. They can help someone else. They can be an example for someone else, right? For another veteran that's going through it, right? We do these groups and veterans are helping other veterans because they have a safe space to tell their stories. They feel heard, they feel seen. You know, their experiences are validated and they can have access to the resources that they need to get some of the help that they need, where even the military, you know, wasn't there for them in their processing, right? So we have to do that. We have to create safe spaces for individuals, you know, brown and black skinned individuals to be able to get the resources that they need. Because like I was saying, just because they were discharged didn't mean that they are utilizing a GI Bill, right? They may not qualify for these home loans that the VA loan is supposed to be able to help them to get, you know, that they can't get. I can't move into this neighborhood, you know. So it's just so much that goes on. There's just so much that goes on, and it's never ending work, and it's not hard, HARD work, it's heart work, HEART work. And you actually have to experience, unfortunately, you have to have life experiences that are traumatic in order to help people who are dealing with traumatic situations in their own life. Now, that's not to say that people who have not experienced trauma cannot help someone who has, but I think that those of us who have can help in a different way.
That kind of leads me, first of all, I wish everyone on the planet could watch this. I do. I know I am, and I'm sure all of us are, by bearing witness to your truth and what you're sharing, we're all elevated. And this is very powerful. And before Sanjay said power of example, I wrote down in big letters on my little scratchy notepad, the power of example. I'm going to try to take two questions and put it into one, and would sort of, based on what Sanjay just said. So what is one thing that you want people that are a part of this discussion to come away from? And then how could we, to your point, you cannot, if you have different experiences, not all of us have the same, trauma or that specific type of trauma. How could we be helpful? How can we be helpful? How can we be a part of a solution, or, other than bearing witness, which is what we're doing right now? What else is there? Is there anything we can do?
I'll just start real quick. I'll say something fast and I'll give it to you, Tonja. The thing that all of us on this line can do when it comes to our veterans, and not just the Black veterans, but veterans period, is just like what Tonja did in the beginning of this. Acknowledge their service, because it meant something, that they sacrificed something. And a lot of them, in sacrificing what they did to protect us as a whole, they sacrificed their life, their families, things that they tried to come back to that have not worked for them. So acknowledge their service and see them for who they are. Don't expect them to be anything that you want them to be, but just validate who they are, that they exist, and that they have had the experiences that they have, and just let a veteran know that you appreciate their service.
Yeah, that's really good. The other thing I was, I always tell vets, if you serve, you deserve. And respect, dignity, any kind of benefits and stuff like that, take advantage of the veteran benefits and things like that. And so take advantage of, if you have any kind of issues mentally, physically, financially, go to the vet service and see what's available. You serve, you deserve. Because look, a lot of time, guys, we call it civilian life. We think, oh, it must be totally, the same, but it's totally different. I'm telling you, when you locked and loaded for 8, 10, 12 years or whatever, it's a different world. The military is a different world. And like my sister said, coming out of that now and coming to civilian life, it is a challenge. So when you know someone who's been in the military and, help them with their transition and just ask them, how can I help you? Is there any resources, you need or anything like that? Just ask good questions, but please don't ask them if you know that they've been to Iraq, or they've been somewhere fighting. Did you go overseas? Did you fight? How many people you killed? Please don't do that. Don't ever do that. Don't do that, and so, but having, conversations about how, I can help, I think that will, really be cool. And like I said, making sure that veterans know that they're respected, because a lot of times they're invisible. We won't see them. We don't hear them. The only time we even hear about a veteran or someone in the military, when something pops off on TV and you'll see them, in DC, or you'll see them overseas and things of that nature, but we don't think of anything else. Think of them as people, who are really, serving us. They're serving us while we're sleeping. That ain't just no slogan. They're on the wall. Ain't no slogan that just says, I know it is, but most people do in the military before 9 a.m. that most people do all day. That's the truth. It really is. And remember, their goal is to do nothing, is to protect and serve our country, no matter what challenges, that we might face, and so they're over there doing the work. So I'm like what my sister said, thank them for their services, because they're protecting us. And so we owe it to them when they get out to check on them and to make sure that, we're having conversations with them. Look, I had a cousin who did 23 years, and for 6 months, I helped him with his transition plan and how that would look like, and so just things like that, and I think, knowing the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day, because ain't nothing like telling a veteran, Happy Memorial Day, I ain't dead, y'all, so anyway, it's things like that. But having conversations like this, and then talking about how you use your own story. Look, I always say there are many roads to recovery. There are many roads to healing. And I think each and every one of us that's on this call, we have a voice. And if we're still here, then I think, we're obligated to help somebody else. And it could be in the smallest way. It doesn't have to be talking to 10 to 20,000 people. It could be talking to 1 or 2. It could be just sharing your story of hope when you're in the store, telling someone, just to have a good day. There's so many things that, you can do with the challenges and the things that you have. And people need to hear that. People are losing hope like never before. And look, this ain't no Bible study. Yes, I'm a minister, but there's a scripture says that when we refresh others, then we refresh ourselves. And a lot of times just telling our story to one person once a month will refresh us. So you can start where you are and, help somebody, which will in return help you.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say on that note too, that's one of my favorite Bible scriptures. Another thing I want to say on this note too, is for those of us who are entrepreneurs, those of us who have our own business or have access to resources, honor veterans. There's nothing that's better for me. I mean, to me, it's just a small thing. But if I go someplace and I eat a meal, someone says, "Oh, did you serve? We have a military discount." They would give me a small discount just because I'm a ID carrier. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing that's better than that, to feel like people appreciate you. So please appreciate our veterans. Please appreciate our veterans in whatever way you can. In whatever way you can.
Thank you. Oh my God, so wonderful. I have a request at the very end, and And that would be, and obviously it's not a demand in disguise, it's a request for Tonja and Sundria, because you have such a strong, you're from these faith communities, maybe we can end with a prayer, or there's something that you can say to us to uplift all of us, sort of tie it all together. I'd like to open up the last, 10 minutes. If anyone has any questions, I know Chelsea has one, but if anyone has a question, please unmute yourself if you can, or raise your hand, or just feel free to ask a question now, or a comment would be fine as well.
I would love to sing. Y'all knew I told y'all I want to sing on Broadway. I'm getting there one day. But since you asked, I would like to, end us with that song whenever, people are finished asking their questions.
Wonderful.
I'll ask my question while people are getting their questions together. If anyone has anything, no pressure. But you and Tonja, you touched on it, on this self-care piece. And I thought that would be really important as people, if we are, starting to tell our story, a lot of times you are giving so much back. And obviously as someone who served, you're giving so much. So there's also that piece of self-care once you're starting to help other people that you cannot forget about. And so if you have any things you do for self-care, any advice you can give on that piece, I would love to hear it.
Sure. I had to learn the hard way. I ain't gonna lie and say I mastered that mug, baby, because I was going nowhere fast. I worked for the Bush administration for 6 years. I'm not a Republican. I am not a Democrat. I'm a registered independent. So let me just clear that. But the fact that a Black girl who had a reputation like me, who even the Secret Service went, y'all letting her, y'all actually letting her come to the State of the Union address, and you putting her on the front row. Well, the Bible says that God will take the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. So I'm like, okay, that would be me. And so, that whole process, I have to tell y'all, was amazing, but the level of stress almost beat me down. And a lot of people didn't know how to even help me with that. And so I had to really learn how to practice self-care, not just going to get my hair done and my nails done. That's Black girl magic. I'm talking about making sure I'm eating right, making sure I'm sleeping right. I got some good sleep hygiene, make sure I am hydrated with water, and make sure I work out like my life depended on it. But also, knowing when I'm triggered, I went through EMDR, therapy, and knowing how to take a break. Like after this, I have another thing to do at 2:00. So I know I have to schedule where I'm gonna take a 15-minute break, chill, take a brain break. And take a brain break. We all need to take a brain break, and we all need to give our permission to do nothing. Well, let me be clear. The person who said that, I'm gonna sleep when I'm dead, that's stupid. No, we all have to have rest. There is a blessing in resting. And even if you work out, they'll tell you working out is great, but your recovery time, that's when you really grow. So you really have to take the time to watch stupid stuff on the TV, to listen to some good music. You really have to get in whatever that space look like to protect your peace. My husband cannot protect my peace. I am the one who have to protect that. And so you have to be real intention, give yourself permission. Healing is your birthright. Let me just say that, all of our birthright. Give yourself permission to do nothing. It's okay if you don't want to get out of your pajamas for one day. Now, if you're in your pajamas for a week, we need to holler at you. It's okay to sit on the couch and just let your brain break and just to be. And so give yourself permission to just chill. That's the best thing that any of us can do. I don't care what job you do, is to take care of yourself and just take those breaks. And like I said, make sure all that eating right and stuff like that, that's the truth, for real. I don't like it, but it's necessary.
Yeah. I don't know if you wanted me to answer that question or not. For me, it's about knowing what refreshes you, what restores you. And as Tonja was saying, rest refreshes and restores. I actually am so bad, and Adam knows I'm like OCD. I have to plan my rest. Right? I have to plan my rest. And so I plan on when I'm going to shut down. And I love all these devices we have, right? I set my devices that they turn off at a certain time. If you won't get me, if the world is on fire, I won't know, right? And I've told everybody that I love. I have grown people and grown children, right? So they have their own households, so that they automatically know if something happens, look after one another because I'm going to be resting, right? So, and then I also plan time away. I believe that I'm refreshed when I get away. And for me, that looks like water, right? That looks like peaceful shores. And so I know that that's where I get my best, I do my best healing, my restoration, my refreshing, even if I drive and I just park and I look out over the waters, just something about the water. So just know what it is for yourself, and then bless yourself with that. And if you have to plan the time like me, put it on your calendar, plan to rest.
Thank you. We have a few minutes, and before Tonja and Sanjay will, if you can, sort of end this meeting in the sort of manner of your choice, I just want to, if all of us, I'm sure all of us see people putting comments, but I'm sharing our collective gratitude that I know everyone here feels. So yeah, it's your meeting for the next couple of minutes. So.
Yeah. Tonja, I don't know if you saw the comment box. When you have been delivered from something, you cannot be re-traumatized by it. You've already experienced that trauma. So you've grown beyond the point where it's harmful for you, right? But I think Tonja used the word triggered. There's certain things that can trigger you. But for me, when I'm triggered, it's, I'll give you an example. For me, touch. Right? I was violated by touch. So for me, touching is really important. And if someone wants to touch me, they have to get my permission. I had 6 beautiful grandchildren, and one in particular, his name is Ezekiel. He runs up into me and he wants to grab me, bear hug me, and all this stuff. But he has learned that he has to ask me for permission to touch me, because my mind is free, but my body has memories, and I'll stiff it up like a board. I don't want him to feel that as rejection from me. And so if you want to touch me, if you want to hug me, most of the time, I'm a yes. I'm not just a yes, I'm a blanket yes. And I will love on you like there's no tomorrow, right? I'll embrace you and let you feel the love of God that's coming from me to you. But the thing that would be a trigger for me. If someone were to come up behind me and even tap me on my shoulder or just hug me from behind, it wouldn't be a good thing for me, right? So for Tonja, I don't know what that looks like, but for me, I can never be re-traumatized by the things that I'm already delivered from and free from. And that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, so I apologize, guys. I can't see, some of the chats. If I do, I have to look up like that because, again, I have more birthdays than most of y'all on this call. So yeah, so I'm sorry if I'm not answering, because if I'm looking like this. But yeah, I that's a good question. I know when I got delivered, from drugs, particularly was crack cocaine at the time. I mean, I went cold turkey and it was automatically happening. And I had tried 15 or 20 times. But that one particular time it did. And, my husband and I used to own a treatment center. We own the first licensed faith-based treatment center in the state of Louisiana and the first of its kind in the nation. And so I'm an advocate of the people going to treatment. But I know as for me, I had not really dealt with the trauma, even though I was doing all this amazing stuff. You see me all over the place and I got this smile on my face. And I told you, when I got married, I became a professional volunteer. I wanted to be a housewife. For 6 years, I was a housewife, and all I did was volunteer because I wanted to be able to help people. And if I volunteered, if I did a favor for you, then when I needed help for somebody else, I figured you do the same for me. And so, but when the stress grew back up, and again, you can go and read Tonja Myles and Set Free Indeed, Tonja Myles and President Bush. What was happening then is that President Bush was running for re-election. And he wanted more money to go to faith-based organizations, particularly when it came to prison work, which my husband and I did, and helping people with addiction. And we didn't get any money. We weren't getting any federal funding. My husband had bought rental properties, and rental properties would help us taking care of stuff in the community. And so they did a search across America, and they found me. And so for 6 years, my life was a whirlwind, but it was good because I was able to talk about mental health and substance abuse and stuff like that. But it also triggered a lot of trauma that I had not dealt with. And so, because again, I was told in the church, you give it to the Lord, you pray about it, you put it on the blood, and that's it. Well, it came back like a wrecking ball. And I'm just like, wait, what's going on? And then because I had never dealt with the trauma, there was never no name to the pain. And when all that made sense, that's when healing began. And so am I triggered? Have I forgotten, gotten over what happened? Yeah, but I'm still sensitive to some things. It's just like, look, if you break your foot, you're still gonna be a little sensitive the way you step off something and stuff like that. Triggers for me, I still have to watch that because I hear people's story all the time. Being a, certified peer support specialist, that's part of what I do as a counselor. I listen to people's stuff. And sometimes I am triggered because the same story that they have is now, became mine. And so I can't get caught up into that because they're telling their story, not mine. So there are different things that, I had, to do different. But again, like I said, am I over that? Absolutely. Is there still sensitivity, to some of those spaces? Yes, it is. And like my sister said, having PTSD, I still have some triggers. I still, have to sit in the room with my back can't be against the wall. I still, I still have to see where I can get out. What can I barricade myself? I mean, there's a lot of things, like I said, that I have that, for having PTSD. But for the most part, like I said, I take medication, and to be honest, that's a whole nother story we can have for another day. Because when you're Black and saved, you don't need to be taking no medication. You need to be praying. I did all that, and I could still have a scripture and a script, just saying. So, but there are things that I have put in place that has helped me to do this work. But while I'm still doing this work, I still have to make sure the work that I'm doing on, like my sister say, not just the hard work, but the hard work. So.
Wonderful. So perhaps Sanjira, maybe a quick prayer if you want, and then take us out with the song, Tonja.
I would love that. But first, before I do the quick prayer, I just want to say this really quickly, and I know we need to leave. Tonja's faith-based. I'm faith-based as well, and I want you to know that the God that I serve cares about people's mental health and well-being. We think about the woman that had the issue of blood. A lot of people who know that Bible story. It was a woman who sought after God because she bled for 12 years. No one could heal her. She went to doctors and all this other things. She was supposed to be outcast, right? But what happened is that she sought after Christ, who was in a particular place. And when she touched him, she was healed. Her goal was to be made well. But God turned around and said, "Who touched me?" He was in a crowd of people bumping up against him, but there was a particular touch that came from this woman. And when he said that, she fell trembling and said, "It was me," and told him her whole story. She told him her whole truth, right? Truth sets us free. She told Christ her whole truth. But look what Christ did. He said that she was now made whole. I believe that he validated her. I believe that he looked at her. I believe that he heard her. Hear me, Adam. I believe that he saw her. I believe that he reached into her very being and healed her mental illness. She had to be dealing with something. She bled for 12 years. She was outcast. No one could help her. People didn't want her around. That was in Levitical time. She had to run saying, "I'm unclean, unclean." People had to spread. They couldn't be around her. But God made her whole. He healed her mind. He healed her body. Her goal was to have her body healed, but Christ healed her mind. So I love the fact that when someone comes to me, they come to me because they want to be made well. Right. And I try to help to get them to a place where they can be made whole. That's what I do with my veterans. That's what I do with the people that I embrace. And that's what I'm doing with you here today. So, dear Heavenly Father, but right now, I just thank you for these moments that we've had to spend together. Lord, you know that our lives could have taken us any place else right now. But Lord, you saw fit to let us be in this place here with Adam in this safe space that he's created for all of us to glean information, Lord, to help one another, to help veterans, to help us be better people, to help us understand our privilege and how we can even help our veterans and other people who don't look like us, to make safe spaces in the world for other people. I thank you for that. Lord, look upon every household that's represented here. You know every need, you know every desire, Lord. Please fix it, heal it, show up, destruct, take away anything there that's not like you or of you. Remove evilness, remove darkness. Help people get to a place where they're ready to be made whole. And Lord, let there be people and support systems around them that can help to guide them to that place. If they don't know any other place to go, let them come to the HearMe app. These and many other blessings we ask in your son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Where would I be? You only know. I'm glad you see through eyes of love, a hopeless case, an empty space, if not for grace, amazing grace, how sweet the sound. I once was lost, but now I'm found, a hopeless case, an empty space, if not for grace, a hopeless case, an empty space, if not for grace.